Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Jeni Elizabeth. Jeni is a renowned celebrity stylist with over 20 years of experience crafting bold, trend-driven looks for luxury, editorial, and on-screen fashion. Known for her ability to blend whimsy with sophistication, she has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, curating standout styles that make a lasting impression. Now she's taken her passion beyond the red carpet and into homes, helping individuals elevate their everyday wardrobes. Whether you need a complete closet overhaul, personal styling, or expert guidance on creating a wardrobe that fits your style, Jeni brings her expertise directly to you. With an eye for emerging trends and a talent for transforming fashion into a powerful storytelling tool, she is redefining a personal style one client at a time. You can find Jeni on Facebook by searching Jeni Elizabeth or on LinkedIn by searching Jeni Elizabeth Paolella. Hello, Jeni. It's been fantastic having you on the show.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Jeni Elizabeth?
I think for me, certainly, and I think I've really learned the meaning of success the past year. It really means happiness and being content and enjoying every minute of what you're doing. That for me has been the most successful part of my career.
One thing that you just said there, it's you emphasized it being happy, but also being content. What do you think, from your personal experience, a lot of people forget or leave out the aspect of being content?
I think that the nature of our world right now is to sort of rush, rush, rush and go, go, go and get to the top. And how much more can I get? How much money can I, how much more money, can I make? Or, in my world, it's, the bigger show, the bigger celebrity. And I think, as you're growing up, your parents or, aunts, uncles, everyone will say it goes by so fast, right? Um, and I think I took that for granted. And as I've gotten older, and when you said she's been doing this for 20 years, kind of like hits you in the face, you're like, oh God. But you realize that if you don't take a minute and look around and enjoy it and sort of feel content in that space, then it's all just kind of a blur. And that's, what I've really learned to do the past year is sit in it and enjoy it and feel it and remember it because, I think as we've all learned, with current events and everything going on right now, you never know what tomorrow will bring. And I just think that being content and enjoying the success that you have in that moment is super important.
And I also think, like, once you said that, I started thinking in my head too, and talking about those moments because in working in the realm with celebrities, with things going on all the time and needing to move on to like the next project, my I started thinking about my professional sports days and even working at Lockheed and traveling all the time. And I was like, there were some really great moments I had that stand out. But there's
Yeah.
a lot of small things that if you ask me to recount like detail, I really couldn't. I could give you a broad overview, but and once you said that, I was like, when I was in it, I know I was already thinking about the next thing. What else is on the plate? What else do we gotta get done? And to your point, I've slowly tried to undo those skills of mine of like, okay, well, we're doing this has to get done, to be like, okay, am I present, am I taking this in, and celebrating those wins too. I think a lot of times we work towards a win, we get the win, and then as soon as we get it, we go, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
But we those are important moments.
For sure. And when I look back, there were certain moments. I remember my mom saying to me the day that I got married, she came over to me and, the ceremony was over and we were in the reception. And I remember she said to me, just stand here for a minute and take a minute and look around, like look at all the love in this room. And, I did it. In the moment, I was like, Mom, I have to do, da 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 da. Da. And she's like, Jeni, just take a minute. And the same thing happened when I had my children. She reminded me literally right before I delivered each one, remember this moment. Of course, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm gonna remember it. But she was right. And I think somewhere along the way, for whatever reason with my career, I didn't have my mom there to remind me to do it. And there were so many amazing moments that looking back now, I think like if I had just sat in peace and content for a moment and absorbed it, because, also when you have kids, you find yourself sort of, they want to know this, they want to know that, like, and so you're sitting there like, oh my God, what was that? Or what did she wear? Or who held, and so it's just that minute to just enjoy it, sit and be content in everything that you get along the way. It's invaluable.
And that being said, too, as I mentioned earlier, and you highlighted, you've spent over 2 decades shaping the way people express themselves through fashion, whether it's on screen, on red carpets, in their homes. Style is such a personal yet powerful tool for confidence and self expression. In your own experience, what do you think our wardrobes say about who we are, and how can we use fashion to reflect that in our personality, especially when in certain situations, like spaces you worked in, whether it's television or red carpet, we individuals might be having to act a certain way, project themselves a certain way.
I think what I always say to my client, and when you're on set or you're in this situation where you have, you're working with talent and there's a team of people around you, right? Whether it's their agents, their managers, or production or whatever it may be, everybody has their own expectation, their own visual of what they want it to look like. And so I've always made it a habit that when I'm doing fittings, whether it be, with a huge celebrity or, with a friend down the road, the most important thing is that you feel comfortable in what you're wearing. Because if you're not comfortable, it's going to read. And it's going to read either on camera or it's going to read at, the dinner that you're going to. And then, it sort of affects your personality, who you are. It directly affects your confidence. If you wake up in the morning, and you put on a sweater that's like just like maybe has a hole in it or it's kind of like grungy looking, you don't feel great all day. You're kind of like, oh, I find myself when I do that, I always preface, I walk in the room like, I know I look terrible, like, and nobody wants to have a day like that. So I think that what you're wearing, and I always try to push my clients like to the brink of what they're comfortable with. But I think it should be, it's not only self-expression and who you are, but it's about what gives you self-confidence and makes you stronger at whatever it is that you're doing. Because if you walk into that business meeting and you're wearing this incredible suit that you feel, amazing and fabulous in, 9 times out of 10, that meeting is going to go the way you want it to go. Um, and the same thing pertains to, on set or on camera. I really think that clothes play a huge part in people's personality, in their demeanor, in how they portray themselves to the world, everyone. It either, it has the ability to really sort of make or break a day, really, like for you. So, um, I think that clothing, fashion, style is directly correlated to success. I really do.
I agree with you. I love fashion, and I personally love pieces, some of which are like trendy now, but I've noticed myself over the years and in different environments really gravitating towards uh, colors and styles and pieces that are timeless,
Yeah.
because then I can, have it in my closet, be ready to go for that occasion, but also use it for different things. So when you're working with individuals and in your experience, do you tend to go towards the trendy side and what's happening now, or the ageless side of things?
So I always love, I'm a big fan of the staple pieces, right? Like as you're saying, the timeless pieces that you'll have forever, whether it's, that perfect pair of denim jeans or a denim jacket, the straw hat, if that's your thing, or, the perfect white tee. There's always those staples. For me and the type of stylist that I am, my like idol when I was studying fashion was Kate Spade. Okay. And
Mhm.
I've always been sort of known as, I'm not like a matchy stylist. It's just not like, I style one of my very dear friends, Lindsay Cesarniak, um, and who was a reporter, sports reporter. And, you know, I love putting her in, last weekend I put her in a yellow dress and she had a pink clutch and she was wearing green heels. And, obviously she was presenting in Palm Springs, or I'm sorry, Palm Beach. But, I feel like color makes people smile. And I love having fun with color, bright colors, and, playing them off each other. I'm not a big fan of, the Navajo palette. People are always, there's like a big joke that I'm always sort of going against the grain with the colors, but I do think that bright colors, whether it's trendy or not. And really some of the trends right now are darker, right? Like the dark blue and purple mix and the reds, they're deeper. Um, I just feel like they don't necessarily throw off like a ton of happiness. So I love color. I love color in staple pieces. I love, instead of a regular, blue denim jacket, I love, a yellow or a green denim jacket, right? Like, and those are the pieces 9 times out of 10 that when someone sees you, they're going to be like, oh my God, that's an awesome jacket. Where did you get it? And it makes people smile. I always say if they're not smiling with you, they're smiling at you. And like, who cares, right? Like either
Mhm.
way, you're smiling. So I love color. I love patterns and polka dots and mixing things together and having fun with it.
How do you get some clients who, when you might start working with them, or depending, who knows, the day they're having, who might not be as open to doing bright colors, or, hey, I think this should go. And you're like, and they're like, I don't know. How do you get them to a place where you're like, okay, no, this is the move. This is what we should be doing?
It's a gradual process. I never want to just, sort of strip everybody down and throw them in something new because, as I was saying before, it's an important part of how they express themselves. But it's just about taking chances. And listen, there are many times that I've gotten clients that aren't like that color combination is not going to play well for them, right? Like whether it's their shape or their skin tone or their hair color, like it doesn't work for everyone. And so I will only really push it with someone if I really believe that it's going to be incredible for them. There are many times as a stylist where I've had to go in a direction that I don't, completely love, but it was right for them and it made them feel incredible. So, all in, that's what you have to do. And you have to consider, no matter what your personal preferences are, what's going to make them comfortable and what they play off of. However, I'm really good at sort of like sneaking in little pieces. And then what I always try to do is like, oh my God, doesn't that like bright green, like, isn't that cobalt blue incredible? And you just have to sort of like build on that a little bit because for some people it's a process. It's a step and it's scary. It can be
Mhm.
scary, if and I always try to reverse it. If someone put me in like an all brown outfit, and sent me on camera, to cover whatever the award show, I would feel really self-conscious. I would be uncomfortable. So I just try to imagine that. And sometimes people are all in, like, let's do it. And some are like, oh God, this is a lot. So it's a step process and it depends on who you're working with.
We've also talked about some of the people you've worked with in the past and how you've built relationships, and uh, really deep relationships with some of your clients. Why do you find building those connections with your client, not just in a working capacity, but in a personal capacity where they do become friends, is so important?
I think that being a wardrobe stylist is a very intimate job. Um, it's a very personal job. It can be very embarrassing. It can be incredible, right? But you are seeing people at their most vulnerable. And um, I think one of the most important pieces to dressing someone to look and feel incredible is getting to know who they are. And I really invest in that. And many of the people that I've worked with have turned out to be some of my closest friends because if I feel like if I don't know them, especially if we're going to go on to work together after the project, if I don't know them, then I'm not going to serve them well at all, dressing them, right? And to me, it's so important to have that one-on-one relationship and really know someone inside and out, not just for what's in their closet, but also for, you know, the tone of voice that they have
Mhm.
and their sense of humor and, what upsets them and what makes them happy. Those are all things that I think should play into how they're dressed and who they are. Um, and, I'm proud to say that many people, I met Marissa Winokur on set, and she is one of my closest friends. Uh, if Beverly Cameron, or even as I mentioned, Lindsay, many of these people that I've worked with, I know that they're wonderful moms and friends. They'll be in my life forever. And I love that. I love that we could just go out and have fun, or they're calling me like, oh my God, I have this event and I need this. It makes me
And
proud.
and it's one of those things, like you said, when you get to know someone on a deeper level, you get to build their wardrobe around their personality even more. But really, it's anything, right? How can I serve individuals? Even use me as an example as a podcast host, because I believe exactly what you're saying. And as a podcast consultant on someone else's show, if I don't know what their goals are, if I don't know what they're doing in their personal life and the tone they speak and when they're joking, to really reflect that in everything they end up doing in their podcast. And it's like when you're a stylist or you're really speaking on behalf of any other individual, you have to know who that individual is. This was one of my actually conversations I had recently in my personal life. And my boyfriend was like, Olivia, you're going really deep into this. And it was this one woman, who will name nameless. I might get in trouble for telling this story, but whatever. And she was talking on behalf of a bunch of spouses. Yet she had not gotten to know any, like most of the spouses that she was talking on behalf of. And I was just like, how is that person able to use their voice to talk about all of us if she doesn't actually know
Right.
any of us? And i I take that as such a moment of empowerment when someone else gives you their voice and says, okay, now I trust you. But with that, you have to be worthy and trustworthy of that individual and respect every aspect of them and build that relationship up.
Yeah. It's it's really like sort of an all-encompassing job, right? I mean, um it's a it's one of the most important jobs I feel like, you can take is, sort of determining how you're delivering someone else to the world. And I don't know that there, is another job for like personally, for many people that could be more important than that, right? And at the end of the day, you could be determining whether they get the job or they win the award or their show gets renewed or, whatever it may be. And that's, whether they love their pictures on their wedding day, whatever it is, it's scary, but it's also an incredible honor. And it's really exciting when you're in it.
One of the things you and I have connected about and talked about too is working in the space of meeting people where they are and understanding the environment, whether that is more in the celebrity space or personal space. And when it comes to celebrity styling, I feel like anything that has to do with pro athletes, celebrities, you name it, actors, there's this perception that then gets put out there that if you're in that space, you obviously you are at a caliber to be in that room. That's not up for debate. You've worked hard to get there. But the perception is, okay, you're making all this money, you have all this time, you can, you can really make your own schedule, you have all the power. And in reality, that's not totally true. So for you, as you have navigated, over your 2 decades in the space working with celebrities, how do you meet them where they are? But also, how is it like having that gap in the other side of things where people just assume because you're working in that space, all these other things must also be happening?
It's hard, just like what you said. I think that not only do they assume that you're of that caliber, but they also, specifically for styling, I cannot remember a time where someone wasn't like, "Oh my God, that's the best job. Like you're so lucky." That's incredible. It's so fun, like no downsides, right? And I remember one night specifically, I was out in Los Angeles and someone came up and said that to me, and I had just finished shooting like literally days of one show, and it was back-to-back scenes, and I had been in and out of the mall so many times that I still wonder why it is that malls do not have carts. I feel like I have to invent that for stylists alone. But I remember pulling up my sleeve and showing the woman my arm, and I was bruised, like literally had like blood bruises all up and down my arms because I had been carrying like 15 garment bags and shopping bags and running around like the mall, literally like soaking wet in sweat. And then, you get there only for, you always have the clients that are wonderful and treat you like family. And then you have the clients who make sure that they know that you work for them and you're dressing them, and they're sure to put you in your place. And, I have seen both. And I think that, obviously in that moment, you're sort of like, yeah, it's great. But there is, just like any job, another side to it. And as personally as a stylist, there's only so high that you can go. No matter what, you're always working for someone else. You're never like, even if own the company and you have 10 stylists underneath you, those stylists they still have someone over them because whoever it is that hired them to dress them is their boss that day. So you never go through a day working as a stylist where you're only reporting to yourself. It doesn't happen. Like, whereas most people are like, that's where I want to get in my career. As a stylist, you don't ever have that option. I don't think that people necessarily remember that.
Mhm.
Um, but also, it's just about sort of remembering that whatever you did to get in that room, no matter what room you're in, and listen, I've been in rooms, with people that I would have to pinch myself to believe that I was in the room with them. And they have made me feel wonderful and they have made me feel awful. And I think at the end of the day, it's just about knowing that whatever it looks like on the outside, that what happens, how you're treated, um, and working the very best that you can through it. And as far as what other people are thinking, I think no matter what, when you think about Hollywood or these, big time sports players, and we've talked about how I dressed Travis Kelce, in that moment, no one really knew who Travis Kelce was. Um, and I think that again, going back to our original, it's about taking a moment and absorbing it, being content in it. Um, but also sort of realizing that, you worked just as hard to get there. It's important to keep your self-esteem and your confidence no matter how you're treated in that situation. And reminding people that life isn't always what you read, right? It isn't always what you see. There's always another side to it. Always, as we know.
Yes, as you and I both know. And that being said, too, how have you juggled being a mom and being in this profession that can take you on long days. You might have to be in set, and there's always that change in pace. How have you managed both sides of things?
I think, when I had my son, I was filming The Real, the daytime talk show, The Real. And, I feel like I had him in 5 minutes and came right back, and he sort of grew up on the set, right? When I had my daughter, things got a little more difficult. You learn to balance by priority, really. And, I had sort of that one moment where I came home and I, wanted to go on tour with one of my clients, and my husband kind of looked at me crazy and was like, Jeni, you're 7 months pregnant. You're not going on any tour bus. Like, and for a minute, I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, he's like, what if you go into labor? Like, I'm like, oh, right, right. So, I think at that point you sort of have to prioritize. And for me, my children have always come first in everything that I do. That's just who I am in the way that I never had difficulty, whether it was, a job or my kids. If my kids, couldn't do it or couldn't go, I wouldn't go. For me, prioritizing my children over work has never been an issue. That said, I think it's more about being in the industry and finding the balance because, as we know, Hollywood is very up and down. Financially, it's a dicey job to have. And, whether it's COVID or then you have, the strikes or, um, recently now the fires, like everything sort of directly affects your job, right? And the crew that goes into it. So, people think like, oh, this show is going to shut down, that show is going to shut down. Well, if something has to be delayed for a strike or COVID or whatever, that's like 400 lives on the line and it's over and over and over. It's a dicey job to be in as a mom. Also, you're independent, you don't get insurance. Like you don't, it's a very scary, I think the balance is more about really about networking because that's how you get from job to job. Sticking with your clients, that's how you get from job to job, developing those friendships. But also it's about sort of finding the balance of, financially being able to keep things going in such a hard industry because now you have children. That's been one of the hardest things for me.
And bringing up your children, you recently launched an additional business, a business that has gotten overwhelming love and support and people driving to it. But it's something unique. It's taking your fashion perspective and you're also working with your kids. And
Yeah.
your kids have input. What has it been like working with your kids and also along the way teaching them some of the entrepreneurial side of things?
So, as I mentioned before, I have like what some would say, a very unhealthy obsession with my children. I love spending time with them. Um, and they've been on this road with me, they know that I dress people for television and, they know that, I care very much about what they wear. And so they've always sort of been drawn to clothes and, we decided recently to open this Etsy shop. And with the way sort of print on demand works, they can go into Canva and just literally have so much fun, with art, just plopping this here and that there. And then, you take it and you put it on a sweatshirt and they're like, oh my God, I made this sweatshirt. And it's been a really fun process. We decided to launch this Etsy shop, which is the beginning of a long-term goal. I called my son Buggy growing up, and my daughter Noodle. And so we are in the process of launching Bugs and Noodles, and they are designing all of these clothes. We're hoping to, make it a little bigger, turn it into like a website but for the moment, my daughter is making slime now and she wants to launch slime. And I think it's sort of teaching them, Tyler had a moment the other night where he was decorating this phone case and it wasn't lining up correctly and he didn't have, the sizing right. And, you can sort of see their little brains working. And I'm like, Tyler, like if it doesn't line up right, it's not going to look right. People aren't going to buy it. And he's like, Right. Okay. And so, he'll go in and I think they're just sort of also learning the value of a dollar, and it's been a really hard couple of years in media and in television, and they know that because, their mom's been home, right? Like it hasn't been that much work. And so for them, you know, it's sort of the sacrifices of, maybe they don't get as many Robux or, whatever Fortnite points. They earn it by creating these clothes and selling them in the Etsy shop. And yes, I'm lucky to be surrounded by incredible people who, have been so excited about it. And, it's been really fun to work with them and see their different designs and what it is that they want to make and what they gravitate to, the colors that they like. I'm really excited. I'm hoping that it takes off, and I'm excited to add slime into it. God only knows what my house is going to look like, but um, it's fun. It's fun to do fashion with your kids. It is.
And it's something too that it's just the adventure. It's getting to see how their mind shifts, like you said, and seeing what they're doing and how they interpret everything, but also making them think, like you said, in that perfect example of like, okay, it isn't just if it's not perfect, it'll be fine. It's have you thought about these other aspects? Jenny, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
So you can find me on Instagram with Jeni Elizabeth, as you mentioned, on my LinkedIn or even on Facebook. You can always send me a DM on Instagram, and I love chatting with people about clothes and fashion.
Well, thank you, Jenny, for all of your insight today and all of your stories as well.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome, and I wish you continued success and lots of love.
Thank you. And I'm excited to also see where the store continues to grow and all your fashion too on television and in different places. I'll be keeping an eye out, being like, oh, by what Jenny talked about, that's probably her.
You
Be sending
better.
you text messages being like, that was you, right? Well, a few more key takeaways from today's conversation is remember to take a moment, as Jenny brought up with her mother and her mother really instilling that. It's like it's important to take a moment sometimes and understand where you are, what you're experiencing, the emotions, the feel, what you've accomplished. And remember that because in this fast paced world, like Jenny mentioned, sometimes we just keep moving and then we forget about it. And really those moments can shape how our perspectives are, our memories, how we tell stories. You never know. As well as if you don't know them, how will you be able to service them? Jenny mentions this with the relationships she builds with her clients and really being able to get to know them, build those relationships, not just to potentially get other work, but represent them, their comfortability, their voice through fashion. And that's an important thing for all of us to remember, as well as that Jenny brought up, is our confidence also stems from the fashion we're wearing. So if you're feeling a little low in the day, maybe take a moment and say, why am I feeling this way? Is it because of my wardrobe? What could I do to feel better? As Jenny mentioned, putting some color in, putting colors that make you smile into your fashion can change the game, not just for the day, but for a meeting that might be really important. We're seeing that more and more now, too. I recently saw something where someone took all the blacks and just the formal interview suits that they wear, put a splash in color in, and you saw how the demeanor of the room changed and that outcome that Jenny talked about, as well as balance is priority and really understanding where your priorities are and then creating balance around that. Jenny mentioned, for example, her kids are her priority. If it doesn't fit with what's going on in her family space, then she'll take a step back and say, okay, this is where I need to draw the line. This won't work. So sometimes I think we all need to take those moments of evaluating where our priorities are and then creating the balance around that instead of creating balance from the other side of things of, okay, well, I need to do X, Y, and Z to accomplish this or be in this work zone. So how do I need to balance everything else? I think That was a really informative perspective that Jeni gave all of us. And the challenge I'm going to give everyone today is, what are your priorities and how are you then turning around and using that to balance everything else? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Jeni Elizabeth. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.